his extortioner, Lord Mael Stronghart. It was you! Lord Stronghart, a moment ago, you claimed that what the court had just heard could destroy justice in this country. But you weren't trying to protect justice at all. All you were trying to do was conceal the secret of your true nature and the countless lives you sacrificed up till now. It just didn't make any sense to me that the third victim, the former Lord Chief Justice, was my brother's benefactor and a man of lofty principles. As I said, Clint had no possible reason to kill the man. But you did, didn't you, Lord Stronghart? To eliminate the man who stood between you and the office you'd set your sights upon. You used your own hunting dog, Lord Clint Van Zeeks, to take him down. It had to be done. London's unsavory shadows are deep, and the arms of the law fail to reach their depths. Crime must be cut off at the roots, but the Lord Chief Justice at the time couldn't see that. He was weak. Lofty principles, you say. Tantamount to cowardice, if you ask me. Which is why I took his place, in order to fight the crime he was allowing to spread like wildfire. By murdering the man? The Reaper, the Professor, the name makes no difference. As I've explained countless times already, it was all done for the furtherance of law and order in London.
Objection.
Are you going to legitimize the murder of my father, too? Ah, Ryunosuke. Well, that was unfortunate. I'd fully intended to send him back to Japan, as we'd agreed. I don't believe you. It was you, wasn't it? You killed him. No, it wasn't me who took your father's life. Then who? On the night following his mock execution, I went to Logate Cemetery at 3 in the morning with Jigoku. Judge Jigoku? There had to be a collaborator on the Japanese side to manage Asogi's treatment after his repatriation. Jigoku had fierce ambition. It made him easy to manipulate. 10 years ago, after he'd stood trial for the destruction of the witness stand, I had words with him. When I told him of the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs could be his, he couldn't agree fast enough. Says Shiro, you fool. As you know, Asogi escaped the prison in a closed casket and was subsequently interred. We intended to dig him out of his grave before he ran out of air. But sadly, all did not go to plan. There was an unexpected visitor to the cemetery with his own ideas about digging graves. A man who witnessed what nobody was supposed to see. Enoch Drebber. Of course, I knew grave robbers frequented London cemeteries. But that grave on that particular night... Blast! If people find out the convict wasn't really executed, the scandal will rock the very foundations of the Empire. Then what do we do? Shoot him, Mr. Jigoku! Shoot Asogi at once! He can't live now that this has happened. He has to go! What are you talking about? You had an agreement. You promised he could return to Japan. Everything has changed now. If the truth got out because of this, both of us would be finished. Forever! Come on, Jigoku, do it! Pull the trigger! Shoot! Jigoku shot Asogi from the shadows. The grave robber was so close, the blood sprayed over his coat. He fled as fast as his legs would carry him. Then Jigoku and I put Asogi's body back in the grave from which he just emerged. When I later learned of the waxwork modeler's presence at the scene as well, I made her swear to two things. never to remove the professor's mask, and never to speak of the events of that night. And with that, the secret was buried along with the Sogi's corpse. So, now you know what really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night. It was Jigoku, your Japanese acquaintance, who killed the Sogi in the end, you see. He claimed to be the man's friend. But when push came to shove, he pulled the trigger. Just before Mr. Jigoku left the courtroom earlier, he said that the assassin exchange proposal was a demand from his British counterpart. So you coerced him too, using what happened in the graveyard. Oh, by that time, Jigoku was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, negotiating international treaties with Britain. You can imagine what would have happened if it came to light he'd murdered a compatriot 10 years earlier. He would have lost everything. I merely reminded him of that. That's blackmail, dude. How do you sleep at night? Exactly, man. How do you sleep? These past 10 years, I fought tirelessly with the darker recesses of London's criminal underworld. And I've used whatever means necessary to ensure that justice prevails and law and order reign supreme. That couldn't be further from the truth. The fact is, you haven't fought crime at all. How dare you! I saved Clint Van Zeeks from dishonor in his death. Objection! Whilst behind the scenes you systematically buried anyone who stood in your way. And then, you made my father take the blame. It was unavoidable. It was the only way to protect our justice system and public order. And let's not forget the others you had killed as well. Setting the defendant up as the Reaper to cover the truth behind the murders of countless more. That's enough! Do you have any idea of the conniving that led to the acquittals of those wretched criminals? We have to fight fire with fire. Our courts can't function without a Reaper. Can't you see all I've done for this country? This has been my struggle. Yes. Objection. You've done nothing. It's Lord Van Zeeks here who's worked tirelessly and justly in court, whilst enduring the disgrace of the Reaper name. And Inspector Gregson, fraught with anguish for having sullied his hands through a desire to do the right thing. Not to mention Genshin Asogi, who risked his life going in pursuit of the truth you tried to hide. No, the darker recesses of London's underworld were largely filled by you. You little! When will you get it through your thick skulls? That it was all for Queen and Country, I'm tired of that excuse. You've consistently twisted the truth for bargaining power to make others do your bidding. Nothing more. People who willingly twist the truth and coerce others have no right to call themselves part of the judiciary. I strongly suggest you don't ever talk of justice again. This is destroying my voice. I've never had them use a Megatron voice this long. Oh, he's pulling a Damon Gant. He's pulling a Damon Gant. Well, well, well. Dear me, my good fellows, dear me. A well-deserved round of applause, I think, for a quite marvelous performance. Yes. What are you talking about? Those delightfully great expressions. That beautifully pronounced Queen's English. Oh, yes, indeed. Really, our friends from the Far East are quite the picture of industriousness. You fraud. Keep your mockery. Please don't misunderstand. It really is exactly as you've both said. What are you trying to say? I've occupied the darker recesses of London's underworld and, how did you put it? Done nothing? I confess it's a little embarrassing to have it pointed out quite so starkly, but yes. I really have done nothing, which means I can be indicted for nothing. No? What twisted logic are you using? Yeah, my sentiments exactly, Ryunosuke. It's true. Personally, I've committed no crime. I'm merely surrounded by idiots. Fools who've acted very rashly indeed. Oh, yes. You can't get away with that. You've consistently preyed on people's weaknesses. And what? Threatened them? Are you sure it wasn't just bargaining? I would like to address all the good lords, ladies, and gentlemen of the judiciary here in present. You all know of these darker recesses in our great capital, and deep down, I believe you also know that to fight those who dwell here requires at least some of us to occupy the darkness ourselves. No, that's a dangerous way to go. That's a slippery road. So let me appeal to your good sense now. Consider the situation with me. If this catalog of horrifying revelations were to become common knowledge amongst the 6 million inhabitants of London, what might happen? To learn that the infamous murderer of royals and nobles was a respected member of the aristocracy himself. That evidence was fabricated in the scapegoat's trial amid the secret negotiations with prosecutors to effect a jailbreak. That the Reaper of the Bailey was an organized group of assassins managed by a Scotland Yard inspector. And finally, that it was all masterminded by the Lord Chief Justice himself. If the general public of Britain knew the truth, all faith in the police and the prosecutor's office would be completely lost, without a doubt, overnight. Public order in the capital would be completely broken down. We'd be cast back to the lawless days of the last century. Precisely. As it was 100 years ago when 1 in 10 of the population were criminals. Think what we've accomplished since then. A public police force. A comprehensive set of laws. And if we want to continue to protect this new era of law and order, I say again, we must at times occupy the darkness ourselves. We've successfully identified and apprehended the man responsible for taking Inspector Gregson's life. That is all that was expected of this trial. All these other matters have been discussed. Will be scrubbed from the minutes of these proceedings. In the interests of preserving law and order. And to protect Her Majesty the Queen, of course. Well, my lords and ladies of the gentlemen, what say you? Oh boy. Here's a point. The things Lord Stronghart has done are quite unforgivable. But on the other hand, isn't it our duty to maintain law and order in the capital? You can't deny that the threat of the Reaper over the years has done wonders for the crime rate. And by fair means or foul, it's all thanks to Lord Stronghart. Oh, dear Lord, he's turned this around. Are you hearing this? This is the will of the British judiciary? Yeah, you take that, Drake. You need that. I don't normally say that. For your rousing response, friends, I express my heartfelt gratitude. Therefore, in accordance with the overwhelming wishes of the court, the record shall be erased. You have to respect the man's ability to turn a situation to his favor. Lord Stronghart really is a master of manipulation. You've conclusively proven his guilt, and he still manages out to evade justice. I just don't know what we can do. Ryunosuke, you It looks like the trial really is going to come to an end now. I'm almost out of options, I think. There's really only one path left open to me. We gotta use that evidence. Yep, as I know only too well, the only thing that carries any weight in court is hard evidence. But Mr. Naruhodo, what evidence is there to use at this stage in trial? I have an idea. Time to call Holmes. Oh my. Yes, Mr. Sholmes asked if you had that with you earlier. We've exposed all of Lord Stronghart's wrongdoing now. I've no doubt that Mr. Sholmes has already deduced exactly how this would unfurl. So I think it must be time for the great detective to take center stage, don't you? Yes, absolutely. Let's take the hair by the ears then, and heave-ho! Yee-hoo! Alright, here goes. Heave-ho! Ow, 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 ow! My dear fellows, must I remind you every time, a gentle tug will suffice. Tally-ho! Mr. Sholmes, you're looking in quite the wrong direction, Mr. Naruhodo. Because I'm over here. Ah! Mr. Naruhodo, he's... It's Mr. Sholmes. That's not really him. I wasn't expecting you back, Sholmes. Delighted to be here again, Lord Stronghart. What is the meaning of this? Bailiff, seize him! Put that man in irons! This is a closed court! You've been warned once already, man! Yes! Oh, yes, indeed! Oh! What? We can't get a hold of him, my lord! Oh god, it looks like he's doing the Macarena. We just go through him! This is hilarious. Alright, this is Sholmes' best final hour. Even better than when we found out he and Yuji Mikotobo were partners. I'm afraid your efforts are wasted. You see, the great detective you see before you is composed entirely of light and shadow. An image, if you will. Mr. Naruhodo, I must congratulate you on your fine deductions. Mr. Sholmes? What on earth is... Are you familiar, I wonder, with the invention known as the telephone? Well, yes. I hear that some public telephones have been installed recently in Tokyo. The sound of speaker's voice is converted to electrical signal and transmitted instantly to another place. Quite. Sounds are transmitted, so could not images keep them company, I mused. Iris and I did some modest experimentation to develop such a device specifically for this very day. Modest experimentation, Mr. Sholmes. What a modest description. And somewhat incidentally, I thought we might just as well transmit an entire scene. Somewhat incidentally, Mr. Sholmes. Now you're just being immodest. So you mean to say you're not actually here, Sholmes? I knew my trusty partner would have no trouble grasping the concept. Except he's grasping the stand to steady himself after your shock arrival. Poor father. I would have hoped he might have been forewarned, being the great detective's great partner. Leave my courtroom at once! Get out, or I swear to you! Dear me, you on the other hand, Lord Stronghart, appear to be very poor grasp of the situation. Yes. Allow me to reiterate, I am not here. Which would, I hope, lead naturally to one asking, where exactly are you? The question I was awaiting! I am at present enjoying the air in a rather splendid garden. A garden? Not just any garden, you understand. A garden at Buckingham Palace. Oh, ho, ho, ho! How do you stop a Lord Chief Justice? By going above him and summoning the Queen. What? You can't be! Buckingham Palace! What's Buckingham Palace, Susato? I've never heard of it. You ever read the news in Naruhodo? Mr. Sholmes? Is Iris with you there? Ah, well now. Iris is currently enjoying some tea. With Her Majesty Queen Victoria. Oh boy. Her Majesty. Not just any Her Majesty, you understand. Her Majesty the Queen of the British Empire. Queen Victoria. And I'm very much gonna expect she is not amused. What? What? What on earth is all this about? Buckingham Palace is Her Majesty the Queen's residence in London, Mr. Naruhodo. Order! Order in the court! I demand immediate silence! Huh? Her Majesty the Queen? You can't be... no! This is some sort of unforgivably distasteful trickery by a third-rate detective. That's all. Unforgivably distasteful trickery? What an apt description. A closed court session attended by elite members of the judiciary is a rare event. I presumed Her Majesty would be more than a little curious about the proceedings. So I decided to show her everything, from start to finish. You showed her? Indeed. By dint of the Herlock Sholmes remote cinematograph. You meddling! This is some kind of nightmare. All the family laundry has been aired out, and the Queen saw all of it. Just as I appear to be standing before you, regaling you with talks of my latest invention. No doubt you've inferred that the reverse is also true. You don't mean... Her Majesty has seen and heard every moment of this proceedings. I assume there would be no objection. After all, every trial in this country is conducted under the auspices of Her Majesty, as you know. You! I confess, I'm quite impatient to hear Her Majesty's opinion about the unforgivably distasteful trickery in which you've been engaged over the past 10 years. No! I was merely... Oh, so sorry to keep you all waiting. Vicky and I had so much to talk about. That's actually fairly impressive considering at this point in time, Queen Victoria was on the last lengths of her life. She was in very much no state to be up and walking, let alone talking with Iris. Iris, there you are. Oh, there it is. I have a little message here from Her Majesty. A message? Well then, if everyone is sitting comfortably... Ahem.
Forthwith and with immediate effect, all authority previously afforded to Mael Stronghart is hereby revoked forevermore. Furthermore, he will be prosecuted for crimes against his country in a public trial by jury
in the coming days. Oh, he's not getting out of this one. A public jury. It seems Her Majesty does not believe we need to fight fire with fire. Justice in this country needn't be administered from the shadows at all. Mael Stronghart, the darkness you fostered to conceal your despicable actions these last 10 years is a thing of the past now. After today, your brand of law and order has no future, because no longer are you the Lord Chief Justice. In the eyes of the law and Her Majesty the Queen, you're nothing but a criminal. Checkmate. Adjourned! 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 Yo! Ow! Oof! Guilty. Oh dear. Guilty. Guilty! Ah! I was worried that was going to destroy my voice. Wow.
Toasty!
Lord Clint Van Zieks left a will in which he confessed to everything. When those words came out of Asogi's mouth, it deranged me completely. I knew I must do anything in my power to contain the situation. But I couldn't find the damn document. I searched his cell, but it wasn't there. Which precipitated the jailbreak plot, I presume. What do you mean? The need to obtain that will was all-consuming. I was sure that if I facilitated Asogi's escape, he would emerge with the will somewhere on his person. But despite searching his limp body in the cemetery that night, it still eluded me. It never even crossed my mind that it was concealed in the sword's hilt. No. My voice is gonna need a rest after this one. Ooh boy. What pains me now is that my brother left this world without a word to me. I'm sorry, Lord Van Zieks. In point of fact, I think perhaps that isn't the case. Sorry? How can that be? There is more to his last will and testament. What? As I confront the prospect of my demise, I feel a bitter regret for my younger brother. Barak, you've always looked up to me, and now you follow in my footsteps to become a prosecutor. It is my fervent wish, and my unspeakable deeds should not hinder your advancement. I ask not for understanding, for none could understand my depravity. I ask only for forgiveness. Asogi is a fine detective and a hunter worthy of respect. He's agreed to honor my final two wishes. The first is that this document survives. The second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed my sins to my wife. May she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I rest my quill. Clint Van Zieks. Clint. Mael Stronghart, you colluded with Seshiro Jigoku in a criminal plot so immense it spanned the oceans, and you cold-heartedly murdered all those who knew the truth about what happened 10 years ago. But why did you set about that now, a whole decade later? To ascend to the very peak. These last 10 years made me realize being the Lord Chief Justice wasn't enough. Short of becoming Her Majesty's Attorney General, I could have no real power to effect the changes needed to this country. So that's it, ambition. You keep going and you keep going and you keep going until you stumble and you fall all the way down. No matter what you gotta do to get higher and higher and higher. That's a slippery slope you're going on. You went on. And for that promotion, I needed to ensure no remnants of the past remained. How could you? I like everything to run smoothly, in the exact manner that I prescribe, like a well-oiled machine. And I was just a step away. And for your ambition to succeed, did you even bother to count the number of brilliant people you had killed? Ah, Mr. Reaper, are you not forgetting something? Such as, you very much adopted your usual prosecutor-like demeanor in the proceedings now. But the reality of the situation is that you are the defendant in this trial. However, the presiding judge would appear to have fallen from the bench, as it were. There he is! May I suggest, therefore, that we entrust the final adjudication to an old friend. My lord! As a member of the judiciary, I have been following the proceedings from the gallery. And I think we'll cut it right here.